Hi guys, welcome back again. It's UK here with part 11 of my Pathfinder campaign. If you watched the last one, you know that there was a small issue with me accidentally not tweaking or toning down one of the monsters enough. One of the characters was killed in that particular session, and I decided, because it was my fault, hands up, I would allow the character to survive. They were very badly injured, they were unconscious, but they needed medical attention. So I agreed, we talked it over, and I said, this is what I'm going to do. It was, so the character of Haji, the party cleric, is alive again. He's still with us. The group retreated from the ruins to Bruce the Halfling's local village of Papworth. I asked him what he wanted the name of his village would be, and he actually just picked the name of a town about 6 or 7 miles away. So from where we are here, so Papworth it was. Well, they rested up for a day. They dobbed in one of the magical halberds that recovered in order to pay for the healing that Haji needed, and for the rest of them. The player of Grill, the druid, had asked if I would allow him, because of the death of his animal companion cub, whether I would allow him to reverse engineer his character, lose the animal companion stuff for his druid, and instead take the other path where he gets the domains and everything. And I said yes, that's fair enough. I wouldn't normally do something like that, but I appreciate it was my cock up that led to everything, so I was like, yeah, fair enough. So basically he decided to take the Storm domain. He's become a bit more a rage in him for the death and loss of what he thought would be his lifelong companion. And so that's quite a nice story element. They went back to the keep where all the ogres are. This time it's been a couple of days. The ogres are now on the battlements, keeping watch. So they came up with the idea of waiting until nightfall, summoning a pair of fire elementals, just like small things, and have them basically charge into the keep and try and set fire to as much as possible. Keep the ogres distracted, and Grill will wild shape into a dire badger and basically dig. They'll all run over to the wall nearest where they need to get into the dungeon, and basically dig up under the wall and up into the courtyard, which they did, which worked quite well. And they basically rushed down into the dungeon to avoid the ogres. They ran into a couple more of these warrior clockworks, but this time they knew exactly what they were doing with them, and they were able to just basically to breeze through them, as it were. They ran into a handful of the normal clockworks, which were not a challenge. One of the interesting encounters they had near the beginning of the dungeon, I'm not going to go through every room sort of thing for you, but they found a room where the clockworks were taking people and basically assimilating them, kind of Borg style. Slowly, they're tied to a table and they're removing the organs carefully and replacing them with clockwork bits, until they had basically got a clockwork inside the skin suit. The second core element of that is when they started beating up on these clockworks. One of the other clockworks opened a door to the rejects room, and so you had all these little clockwork things which had been deemed unsuitable, which were kind of like, imagine sort of like a little army of broken toys coming shambling across the floor in really bad horror movie style, and we had that. So we had some really nice imagery in that encounter. Where do we go next? Oh yes, they ran into a maze, one of these where the walls pivot and shift and move, and the floor's gridded out sort of thing, and it basically funneled them into a fight with a gelatinous cube. And once they defeated that, which was quite tough because the wall was closing in behind them and it was slowly creeping forward to digest them. None of them actually, I don't think anyone took any injury in that particular encounter, and they were able to quite happily slaughter it with their magics. And were able to find a foundry, Oh, and a prisoner. They found a tiefling who had been sent by some person or persons unknown to investigate the clockworks, and had been captured. Didn't know why he hadn't been killed or transformed, only that he was guarded by these things and fed once a day. He refused to tell them who he worked for, saying, you know, I know what you adventurers are like, but was willing to basically, he wanted out of there. So he told them where his treasure was located, if he could just have his axe so he could get out of there. He didn't care about anything else, which was quite good, because it gained the party some potions and a elven chain, as a little bit of treasure. And once he learnt the party's name, the Vanquishers, he realised who they were and suddenly got very, very scared. In their usual thing, which I've noticed with this particular group, they let him go. Even though he suddenly got very, very scared, it's like, how do you know us? What have we done? I haven't quite decided who this person was working for, but I will probably turn it into someone like Warduke or Kellak, the two big bads of the game. Yes. Fought the way through and eventually encountered a temple, with 3 stone golems, and were able to find a controller for these golems. And they worked out that it only worked within the confines of the dungeon and the keep. Once you stepped out, they could never leave the keep, and once you stepped outside the walls, the item ceased working until you were back within the walls. They located the ogre mage that was in charge of this particular band of ogres in a quite good fight, a rather nice one. They managed to defeat him and recover his treasure, and then found the brain gear thing, which was basically like this giant brain in a kind of I'm trying to think how I described it at the time. The way I had it in my mind was, if you've ever seen the Watchmen film, that strange construct thing that Dr. Manhattan makes when they go to Mars, it all sort of like spins around itself like a weird autogyral astrolabe thing. It was like that over a giant pulsing brain, and they dispatched it by using these stone golems, animating them and just commanding them to smash, which was enough to destroy the remaining clockworks. They were able to then rescue the survivors of the raids, many of whom had already been taken. There was very little chance of recovering them, but this half dozen or so townsfolk, they basically offered them jobs. The party has decided they're going to keep this keep, even though they're travelling with Besnik, the merchant. They've decided that they're going to claim this particular keep, and they're going to have the stone golems as its defenders while they're away. And they've basically left a few hundred gold coins to pay these townsfolk to basically start rebuilding the place. There's plenty of supplies still in the keep, and yeah, at some point when they've finished travelling with Besnik, which may not be that far away depending on what I've decided to do at that particular point in the campaign, they're going to come back and run things from here. So quite cool, really. I like that. I didn't actually expect them to do it as well, and that's where we left it. I said that the characters could level up to 5th, which they're going to do over the next 2 weeks in preparation for the game, and we'll see what happens then. But this was a really good game. It certainly made up for the last one. The guys really enjoyed it, as far as I can gather from what I got at the end of the game. So, can't grumble. Anyway, and so until next time, take care and good gaming.